Something just shifted inside Social Security, and if you receive SSI or SSDI, this is not something you should ignore. Because right now, people are waking up confused. Some are seeing different payment amounts. Some are hearing talk about increases. Others are being told nothing changed at all. And the question everyone keeps asking is simple, but loaded with emotion. Are SSI and SSDI payments actually going up? Or is this another false alarm? Before you get excited, before you get worried, before you assume this does or does not apply to you, you need to hear the full truth. Because what's happening right now is not a rumour, it's not a viral headline trick, and it's not a one-size-fits-all update. There has been a major shift. But the way it affects you depends on details most people never hear explained clearly. And that's exactly where the confusion starts. Over the past few days, my inbox has been flooded with messages like, "My neighbour says her payment went up." "I saw online that SSI got boosted." "Someone on YouTube said SSDI is increasing again." "I checked my account and it looks different. Is something wrong?" If that sounds like you, take a breath. You're not imagining things, but you're also not getting the full story from headlines alone. Here's the problem. Social Security changes don't show up like breaking news alerts. They don't come with big announcements. They don't always arrive the same way for everyone. Instead, they creep in quietly. Through recalculations, through timing shifts, through adjustments that are real but poorly explained. And when millions of people depend on the same system for their rent, groceries, and medication, even a small unexplained change feels huge, especially if you live on a fixed income, especially if every dollar already has a job. Now let me say this clearly, because it matters. This is not about a brand new stimulus check. This is not about a sudden bonus promised to everyone, and this is not about politics or campaign talk. This is about how SSI and SSDI payments are being handled right now inside the system, and why some people are seeing changes that others are not. And yes, for some people that change does mean more money, but not in the way most headlines are making it sound. Here's why this feels so confusing. SSI and SSDI are not the same program. They are managed differently, they are calculated differently, and they respond differently when Social Security updates its internal rules. But online, everything gets lumped together. One person sees an increase, another sees nothing. A third panics, thinking something was taken away, and suddenly no one knows what to believe. That's why this conversation matters, because if you misunderstand what's happening right now, you could assume an increase is permanent when it's not, panic over a delay that's only temporary, or miss signs that something actually did change for you, and the worst part. Most official explanations are written in language that doesn't help regular people. They use terms like adjustments, recalculations, eligibility reviews, and timing offsets. But what you really want to know is simple. Did my payment change? Is it going to change again? And what should I expect next? We'll get there. But first, you need context. Right now, Social Security is dealing with overlapping changes at the same time. A new year adjustment period, updated inflation data, corrections to past calculations, and internal system updates that affect how payments are issued and explained. Individually, these things don't seem dramatic. Together they create confusion. And when confusion spreads faster than clear information, people start filling in the blanks themselves. That's when rumors take over. Someone posts a screenshot, someone else posts a theory, and suddenly people think a major increase was announced, or worse, that cuts are coming. So let me ground this conversation right here. There is no hidden cut happening. There is no sudden cancellation of benefits, and there is no universal payment boost being mailed out to everyone. But there is a shift in how payments are being adjusted and reflected, and yes, some people are seeing higher amounts. The reason this matters is not just the money, it's the timing. Any change that happens at the start of a year affects budgeting, planning, and peace of mind. If you rely on SSI or SSDI, you plan your month around that deposit. You count days, you time bills, you know exactly how far each payment needs to stretch. So when something looks different, even slightly, it can shake your confidence. And that's understandable. What makes this even harder is that Social Security doesn't always explain changes before they show up. Sometimes the payment updates first, the letter comes later, and the explanation comes last, which means for a short window of time, people are left guessing. That's the window we're in right now, and that's why you're hearing mixed messages. Now here's what I want you to remember before we go any further. This shift is not a bad thing across the board. For many people, it's neutral. For some, it's quietly positive. And for almost everyone, it's confusing at first. What matters is understanding what changed, why it changed, and how it applies to you, not to someone else on the internet. Because the truth is, SSI and SSDI changes don't hit all at once. They ripple. And in the next part, I'm going to explain exactly what shifted behind the scenes, using plain language, real examples, and no scare tactics. Because once you understand that, everything you're seeing right now will start to make sense. And what happens next might surprise you, but it shouldn't scare you. Because this is where most of the confusion starts. What's happening right now is not one single announcement, it's not one press release, and it's not something that shows up the same way for everyone. What changed is how SSI and SSDI payments are being calculated, adjusted, and reflected inside the system at the same time. And this is being handled quietly by the Social Security Administration, which is why most people didn't hear about it clearly. Here's the key thing most headlines leave out. Social Security doesn't just flip a switch and raise payments for everyone overnight. Instead, it updates formulas, reviews past data, corrects underpayments, and applies adjustments gradually, especially when a new year begins. And right now, several of those processes are overlapping. That's why this feels sudden. Let me explain this in plain English. Every year, Social Security reviews inflation data and cost of living changes. That part is normal, but on top of that, the agency also reviews prior payment calculations, eligibility details, income reporting, and how certain benefits were handled in previous months. If something was slightly off, even by a small amount, corrections can be made, not loudly, not with a headline, but quietly inside your payment. That's one reason some people are seeing increases. Another reason has to do with timing. SSI and SSDI are handled differently. SSI is a needs-based program. SSDI is tied to work history and disability status. So when Social Security updates internal rules or recalculates figures, those updates don't land the same way. One group may see a change immediately. Another group may see it later. Another group may not see it at all. That does not mean anything is wrong. But when people start comparing payments with neighbours or family members, panic spreads fast. Now let's talk numbers, without exaggeration. For people who are seeing increases right now, these are usually modest changes, not massive jumps. We're talking about adjustments, corrections, recalculated amounts, not a brand new benefit, and not something that resets everyone's payment. So if you're hearing claims online that SSI and SSDI just got a huge raise, you need to be careful. That's not how Social Security works. What's actually happening is more subtle and more realistic. Some people are receiving a slightly higher monthly amount, a corrected payment due to a past underpayment, or an adjusted figure tied to updated calculations. And because these changes don't hit everyone at once, it creates the illusion of a major announcement. But there was no single press conference, no emergency alert, just internal updates rolling out. Another piece people don't realize is that Social Security systems update before explanations go out. That means your payment can change before you receive a letter, and during that gap, people fill in the blanks with fear or excitement. Now here's an important clarification. This is not a second cost of living increase. It is not a new bonus payment, and it is not guaranteed to continue increasing every month. This is about alignment, aligning payments with updated data. And when alignment happens, it can look like a raise, even when it's really a correction. That's why you might hear someone say, "My payment went up this month," while someone else says, "Mine stayed the same." Both can be true, and neither means the system is broken. Another reason this feels different right now is timing. Changes at the beginning of the year feel bigger. Your budget resets, your bills reset, your expectations reset. So even a small change feels more important than it might later in the year. And for people living on fixed incomes, that emotional impact is real. Now let me address something important. Some people are worried this shift could lead to cuts later. Let me be very clear. There is no evidence of a hidden cut tied to this shift. There is no sudden rollback happening, and there is no signal that benefits are being taken away quietly. What's happening is adjustment, not reduction. And adjustment does not mean instability. It means the system is correcting itself. Now here's where people need to be careful. Just because someone else saw an increase does not mean you should expect one automatically. And just because your payment didn't change this month does not mean you were skipped or forgotten. Social Security applies updates based on individual records, your work history, your eligibility status, your income reporting, your benefit type. That's why two people receiving benefits can have completely different outcomes. And that's also why misinformation spreads so easily. People assume uniformity where none exists. Now here's the part most channels don't explain. These kinds of shifts usually come in waves. First, payments adjust, then letters arrive, then online accounts update with explanations. So right now, we're in the early stage. That's why everything feels unclear. But clarity is coming, and when it does, it's going to confirm something important. This shift is not meant to hurt you. It's meant to correct and stabilize payments going forward. For some people, that stabilization includes a higher amount. For others, it simply means consistency. And consistency matters when you're planning your life around a fixed deposit. In the next part, I'm going to break this down even further. Who is most likely to notice a change? Who probably won't? And how to tell the difference between a real increase and a temporary adjustment. Because once you understand that, the anxiety drops and control comes back. You don't need to panic. You don't need to guess. And you definitely don't need to trust random screenshots online. You might be asking yourself right now, why did my friend's payment go up but mine didn't? Or, why did I see a small increase but someone else saw nothing? The answer is not random, and it's not unfair. It comes down to who you are in the system and how your benefits are structured. Let's start with SSI recipients. If you receive SSI, your payment is tightly connected to your living situation, your income, and how your eligibility was calculated in the past. For some SSI recipients, this recent shift shows up as a small increase because a prior underpayment was corrected, updated income information was applied, or eligibility details were recalculated more accurately. That increase might not look dramatic. It might be $20, it might be $40, it might just be enough to notice. But when every dollar matters, even a small change feels big. Now here's the key thing. That increase does not mean SSI suddenly became more generous for everyone. It means the system corrected something specific in your record, and that's why your neighbor's experience may not match yours. Now let's talk about SSDI. SSDI is different. It's based on your work history and your disability status. So when adjustments happen, SSDI recipients may notice changes tied to recalculated benefit formulas, updated earnings records, or corrections to how prior months were handled. For SSDI recipients who qualified more recently, changes are more likely to show up. For those who've been receiving SSDI for many years, changes are less common, but still possible. Again, this is not a blanket increase, it's a targeted correction. Now let's talk about people who receive both SSI and SSDI. This group often sees the most confusion because when one side changes and the other doesn't, it looks like something is wrong. But it usually isn't. It just means one benefit was adjusted and the other stayed the same. That's not a penalty, that's alignment. Now I want to address something important, especially if you haven't seen any change at all. If your payment stayed exactly the same, that does not mean you were skipped, you lost out, or something negative is coming. In many cases, no change simply means your payment was already accurate, and that's actually a good thing. No correction was needed, no adjustment was required. Stability can feel disappointing when others are talking about increases, but stability is not a loss. Now let's talk about timing, because this is where panic usually sets in. Some people saw changes at the start of the month, others are seeing them mid-cycle. Some won't see anything until the next payment. That does not mean delays. That does not mean errors. It means updates are processed in stages. And here's something very important. Social Security often updates payments before sending explanations. So you might see a different amount before you ever receive a letter. That gap creates anxiety. You look at your deposit, you compare it to last month, and your mind starts racing. Is this permanent? Is this temporary? Did I do something wrong? Take a breath. Most changes right now fall into one of two categories. Either a correction that brings your payment to where it should have been, or a timing adjustment that smooths things going forward. Very few people are experiencing anything negative, and there is no pattern suggesting future cuts tied to this shift. Now let me say something clearly, because it matters for your peace of mind. If you saw an increase, do not rush to assume it will keep growing every month. And if you did not see an increase, do not assume you missed out forever. Social Security adjustments are not like promotions at work. They are not progressive raises. They are calibrations. And calibrations settle. They don't spiral. Now let's talk about misinformation, because this is where people get hurt. Right now, there are videos and posts claiming everyone is getting more money. SSI just jumped again. SSDI payments are being boosted across the board. Those statements are misleading. They take individual experiences and turn them into universal claims. And when people believe that, they start making financial decisions based on false expectations. That's dangerous. You should never spend money you don't already have based on a rumor. You should never assume a higher amount is guaranteed until it's confirmed consistently. The smartest move right now is observation, not reaction. Watch your deposits, read your notices when they arrive, check your account details carefully, and remember this: your situation is unique, your benefit is personal. Someone else's increase does not define your outcome, and nothing about this shift suggests instability or loss for people who rely on SSI or SSDI. In fact, for many, it's a quiet sign that the system is correcting itself, not breaking. Now, in the next part, we're going to talk about what happens next, what to watch for, what letters may arrive, and how to move forward without stress or fear. Now let's close this out calmly and clearly. Here's what happens next. Over the coming weeks, many of you will receive notices explaining any changes that already showed up in your payments. Some of those letters will arrive after the adjustment, not before. That's normal. You may also see updates in your online Social Security account that finally put words to the numbers you already noticed. The most important thing right now is this: do not panic, do not assume the worst, and do not make financial decisions based on rumors or screenshots. If your payment increased, that's likely a correction or adjustment, bringing your benefit in line with updated information. If your payment stayed the same, that likely means your benefit was already accurate and stable. Neither outcome is a threat. This shift is not about taking benefits away. It's not about sudden cuts. And it's not about instability. It's about alignment. And for many people, that alignment quietly works in your favor. If something does not make sense when your notice arrives, take your time reading it. If you need clarity, reach out directly through official channels, not social media speculation. Remember this: Social Security changes are rarely loud, they are rarely dramatic, and they are almost never as scary as they first appear. You are not late, you are not missing out, and you are not being left behind. Staying informed is how you protect your income and your peace of mind. If this explanation helped you understand what's really happening, make sure you stay connected. Subscribe so you don't miss clear, honest updates like this. We'll keep watching these changes together, and no matter what, you're going to be okay.